This is Why So Mysterious, the podcast where we attempt to fill the gap between the bodies we have and the lack of knowledge around them.
We're sharing our experiences and answering our own questions,
with some help along the way,
to destigmatize tricky, taboo topics.
The triple T's.
So I'm Raven.
And I'm Sara.
And today, on the very first episode, we're going to kind of get into a little bit about our backgrounds with the mystery of our own shit, basically.
Yeah. And I guess just why we're doing this.
Yeah, so I think right off the bat, we should just kind of tell everybody that we both work in the menstrual hygiene industry. And because we care...
And we do.
a lot. We actually do a lot of fact finding.
So much research just to when you're a company and you're putting content out there, you tend to do a lot of research. And then when, also just with our product, we do a lot of research and we just consume so much.
Yeah.
That it's I think we both came to a realization that there's so much out there that people don't know about their uteri.
Uterus in this instance, I think.
All right, I guess they don't have multiple. But yeah, there's just so much that people don't know about their uterus, and
what it affects.
And what it affects, and just how much it affects. I don't think people really realize that it's such a huge part of your body, how your body
overall
functions,
health.
Your overall health, and something that there's two things that I think are my biggest driving force in both the company, but also in this podcast, and why I really want to do this podcast is on average, and I know this was true for myself, was I got an hour of reproductive health education when I was in school. It was 1 hour a semester or an hour a year. I was in public school. I don't know. That's just all we got. If that,
Yeah.
I don't even really remember if it was every year. But
mine wasn't every year.
No. And then it's in 10th grade, you get a semester of some kind of planning class, and then they tell you all the STDs and a little bit about your uterus, but not even that much.
Not enough.
No, not enough. But it's that, and then I think this podcast is going to be about so much more than just menstruation. But what brought us here was menstruation, and I think that's why on this first episode we're going to talk about our experiences of getting our first period, what that was kind of like.
But also we're gonna do that because we both were basically the same age, but we had extremely different encounters with that, and so this isn't just let's tell our first period story. It'll be so cute. No, it's because we had complete opposite ends of the spectrum of personal. It sounds pretty similar in terms of educational through the school system, but at home it was very different. And even for someone like me who had access to, I had people that I could ask who would answer me. In the couple years that I've been doing this job, have learned so much. I had no idea.
I know, your mind is blown.
I had no idea.
To learn, you've no idea, and I think it's just so important to create this podcast so that people of any age can come to the realization that there is so much to learn, because it's they're not necessarily going to get it from growing up. I didn't get it from growing up. I didn't get it from school, and then I started a menstrual hygiene company, and I was just I actually don't know anything. I was what? I had no idea. I didn't know anything about periods. I didn't actually know anything about how periods happened when I started the company.
No, I thought well, that's the other thing too, is I thought I did.
Yeah.
Turns out
you don't. Not at all.
I had no flipping clue, and I still don't for a lot of the part, but I'm really interested to
yeah.
like.
And I think like I think when we decided to do this, I can't remember what we were doing. We were researching a lot of like more like the medical side.
Mm-hmm.
And we both were just like reading stuff and we're just like, this is so frustrating. There's like, people with uteruses are not counted in clinical trials and they're not included in research, and because it's just too difficult to research someone with hormones and or I guess like fluctuating hormones.
Someone with a 28-day
exactly
average clock of hormones.
Yeah. And I think we were both just so disappointed. We were both like, this is so fucked up. Like we're being fed all this information about, and this is more, like if you identify as a woman, you're being fed diet culture your entire life.
Oh yeah.
Entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot, if not all diets, the research behind them are based off of men born male, and were considered 70% of a man.
This is gendered man, just a smaller man.
Just a smaller man. And that is how they've been, say, oh, we need this amount of calories or we need to cut out this amount. It's like, no, like we are definitely not 70% of an average male. Like there is so much more going on in there.
A lot more going on.
I feel like we both just hit a point where we were trying to do research, but then actually finding that the research wasn't really for someone with a uterus. It was 70% of a male.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating.
Also, I would say too, like for me, like anywhere, on social media that I was kind of looking to find answers, it's definitely not everyone, but the more, sort of people out there who are doing some of this work is just like, I'm a snob and I just didn't really want to listen to them. It's like, look, I'm not a mom and I'm not wearing athletic clothing all the time. Like I'm a 30-year-old smoker who wants to be swathed in rhinestones. Don't tell me to meditate.
Precisely.
So I also just kind of wanted to come at it with it's just like, it's not super dry and medical. It's still super informative, but it's also just like, look. Let me tell you something. Should we get into it then?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, I think we should start with you.
Okay.
Yeah. If that's all right.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
So
I'm gonna have to tell it anyways. So.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So the first kind of like start sort of at the beginning is just like what is the like growing up for you? Like what was the general kind of vibe or attitude towards not just menstruation, but just like bodies, changing bodies, maturing, fucking puberty. Yeah. What was the
vibe?
What was the vibe?
The vibe was very, very conservative. So I was raised in a Christian household, and it was literally never talked about. Like not once. Like I think literally maybe once, maybe actually once. But it wasn't actually, let me tell you, it was stopped dead in the middle of the hallway. My mom was like, they tell you these things in school, right?
And these things? She didn't even say what they were?
Didn't say mention. She said these things about your body, right? And I was like, mm-hmm. And then I just walked away. And that was the extent of it ever being a conversation at home. That's it. And then I remember I must have, I don't know, maybe, I don't know why, but I basically had like spotting when I was like 12 or something. I don't think I ever told this part, but had spotting when I was like 12, and I remember being like, I got my period. Like, this is so huge. All my friends were like, everybody wanted their period. Nobody knew what it was. We were all so excited to have it.
Did your friends tell you what a period was?
They didn't know either. Like, nobody really knew. Nobody knew what this thing was, but we all wanted it because it made us a woman.
Right.
And I was like going through literally the most awkward body phase. I didn't have my period.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I was not a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But I had tits. Like, I had boobs.
Right.
And I was like desperate for a bra because I was like, it hurts when I jump. Like, and I was getting big ass boobs at the age of like 12.
Oh, God.
So terrible. But I remember I spotted when I was like 12, and I remember thinking, it's my period, like I have it. And I was at my friend's house, and they're like, you have to call your mom, she's gonna want to know. And I was like, really? Like, you guys tell your mom? And I was like, okay. And so I like pick up the phone, call my mom, and I was like, Mom, I got my period. And she was like, really? Okay. And like, that was it. Like, I think I'm sure I was like, can you buy some pads or something? And then, but I don't think she did. I don't remember. And then she never talked about it when I got home.
Really?
Literally. And then I didn't bleed again. Like, it was like just like light spotting. And
I mean, that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And then I didn't get my period for like another 2 years or something. I was 14 when I actually got my period.
Right.
And I literally thought I was like damaged goods because I didn't get my period. Like, because I was like, I'd gotten this spotting when I was 12.
I just want to say, I want you to tell this part of the story about your little conversation with God.
Oh, I will.
Okay, good.
So being the Christian girl that I was, yet still having a body that was growing, and, you know, I was interested in what was happening to my body, and I really liked masturbating.
I mean, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? I was like, whatever, 14, getting to know my body, and I was like, this is fabulous.
Did you feel bad about it?
Oh, I had so much shame around it, like so much shame. And I remember thinking that I wasn't getting my period because I kept masturbating.
God was like, hey.
Yeah. So I would say a little prayer at night, like, okay, God, I promise I won't masturbate this week if you give me my period. But I always broke the
I never lasted. God damn it.
And then I didn't get my period until I was like 14. And I remember I was at my sister's house. I was kind of like half living with her, half living with my mom at the time.
And your sister's older
my
than you?
sister's older, yeah. My sister's 12 years older. And I still didn't tell anybody. Like, I got my period.
You didn't tell your sister?
I didn't even tell my sister. Yeah. I didn't want to bother her. Like, she had 3 kids and she had enough on her plate, and I was like, it's fine. I can deal with this on my own. And so I did for like almost, I think, like a year or 2. I basically just stole.
You didn't tell anyone?
I didn't
for
tell
2
anyone.
years?
No one. And I think it was when I got my first job that I started to maybe buy products.
Because you had your own money.
Because I had my own money, but I never asked anybody to buy anything for me, like nothing. So,
and also, just like for the record, you grew up very Christian, very conservative, but also
very
extremely poor.
Very poor. And at this time, we were like very, very poor. Hence why I was like half living with my sister and half living with my mom. And so I would just like, like ask a friend for a tampon or pad or whatever when I could. And this was like pre times where they would have pads in schools or anything like that, like in the bathroom. So that wasn't an option. So my main source of sanitary products was just rolling up toilet paper and sticking it in my underwear. I became like a pro at folding the toilet paper properly. And I used that for like definitely over a year. Like,
did you sleep like that as well?
I slept like that. I would like double up on underwear, and and the shame ran so deep that I would wash. I mean, I started washing my own clothes like when I was like 10. But I would like make sure nobody could see my underwear because there would always be blood stains like all over them because I'm using toilet paper. Like, it's literally not gonna last. And yeah, and I was in school. I'd still just use toilet paper. Like, I literally had like the worst relationship with my period my first 2 years. I want to say, I think it was around 16 that I had a friend that like taught me how to use tampons, and then I felt like they were like the most economical purchase. Like, I could use them for like
also, if you're worried about discretion, they're certainly the most discreet.
So easy at the time, but yeah, and I didn't tell my mom until she, again, stopped me in the hallway. I don't know why. That's always, like, her method. She stopped me in the hallway and was like, "You've gotten your period, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, got it."
How old were you when she did that? Like
16? Mm-hmm. And then she was like, "Good, because I would have taken you to the doctor if you hadn't." And I was like, "Okay." Like, and I remember just being like, "Great, now you know." And then
that was it?
I think that was it. I mean, I'm sure like she had her period probably at that time, so I probably stole pads from her, and then it was just kind of like maybe she bought more. I don't really remember. But yeah, so it was kind of traumatic in a sense. Like,
yeah,
I hadn't thought about it until literally this year. Like,
yeah,
I'd never told anybody that I did that. I never.
You kind of just randomly told us,
and I just randomly told you.
Yeah,
and I was like, because there was still so much shame around it, like, and I don't really like blame necessarily my sister or anything. Like, I definitely, my mom should have had those conversations. That's her duty, in my opinion. But like, my sister was there. I could have talked to someone. I just like
were scared.
I had so much shame, and I think that was like a huge part of that was like the Christianity factor,
But also, like, if no one around you who's like an adult in authority is ever talking about it, then you wouldn't think to bring it up for the most part.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And never asked me, not until I was 16, if I had my period. And so yeah, and it was weird because it's like, even past that, like, if I had a job, I could afford to buy it. But when I was in university, I would use toilet paper on occasion because I couldn't afford pads. So I'm like, it was like something I resorted to up until like not that long ago. I mean, it was like probably like 8 years.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, So like, I still resorted to it on occasion.
Canada still had the tampon tax at the time as well when you were in university.
And this is, again, like, even when I was in university, there was no period products in the bathrooms.
No.
At least not the university I went to.
They might have had free ones at like the student union or something.
Yeah,
they always had condoms, but it's like a whole adventure you got to go on. And if you're worried about shame, again, that's not going to be. No.
Yeah, and I really didn't know anything. I thought God was restricting me of my period because I masturbated.
And you'd never see, have you looked up that meme yet about every time you masturbate, God kills a kitten? And you'd never see. I can't believe
I'm glad I didn't see that.
It was something, I remember hearing that when I was a kid, and I was like, what? Like, that doesn't sound very godly.
Oh
my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that was my experience. It took me a really long time to even realize that was not good, like, I just like didn't really even think about it. I was just something it was just how I experienced it for the first time.
I don't think a lot of people do go back and think about it like that unless there is a reason to.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if you have children and you're at the point where you're talking to your kids about it or something like that. But I don't really, I don't think that that's like a thing that people kind of revisit very often, unless they've maybe had like a really, really traumatic experience, like they, hemorrhaged or something in public.
Exactly. And the amount of times I leaked my freaking pants when I was using toilet paper. But I was pro at wrapping a sweater around my waist and just shimmying away.
That just sounds like, I mean, because it is like so devastating to me. I can't imagine doing that. But also because like I didn't have that experience at all, so it just blows my mind I mean, like it blows my mind because we already get people who like can't talk about it. Yeah. Just in like, kind of customer relations or things like that. And it really blows my mind. And then just like personally, some people that I know who like don't want to talk about it. It's not like we're talking fucking periods all the time, all day, every day. I mean, here we are like at work, but I don't bring it up constantly, but just like I don't know, it's like Voldemort or something, like he who must not be named, for like some of my friends, some of whom are like older than me, and it just really is like,
so much shame around it.
Why can't you talk about it? But it's also because like for me, it was never not talked about.
I love that.
It was never not talked about. So
so tell me about your very interesting and very different experience growing up. I love it. We're just like the two opposite ends of the spectrum.
And I think that's also why I have such a hard time understanding why people wouldn't talk about it, especially why people wouldn't talk about it with their kids, like why parents wouldn't talk about it, is because
I agree. I think it's absolutely, you choose to have children, you should have those.
You should prepare
conversations.
That's a preparation thing, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, it was like, it was never not an option to talk about it.
I love it.
So from the time I was like little, my mom, and I've thought about this like a lot lately when I think back about like specifically these things. My mom, it always came from a place of like, I would ask a question as a child because that's what children do. Yeah. And then my mom would make the conscious decision to answer me honestly.
Which is beautiful. I think all parents should do that. I think that's exactly how I want to eventually parent my children.
I would recommend it. Honestly, like, I've told so many people this, but like at the time, not when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was different. But when I was a teenager, at the time, it was very uncomfortable and like I was not into it. But my mom was just like, just fucking listen to me for a second. Yeah. And now it's like, oh my God, like, that's wow. So and also because I talk to people who like didn't have that and are pretty clueless and not feeling very empowered about stuff. So yeah, when I was I think I was 9 or 11, I can't remember exactly, but one of my mom's closest friend and like basically my aunt is a lesbian. And she got together with her wife when I think they got together when I was 9, and when I was 11 they started doing in vitro fertility treatments. And I didn't know where babies came from exactly at the time, but I did know.
How old were you?
I think I was 9. I want to say I was 9 because I remember a very specific pair of pajamas I was wearing at the time when I was 9 when I got them. So I just remember thinking like, I don't know exactly how babies show up, but I do know that men and women make babies. So how are these two women gonna make a baby? And my mom was like, well, and then she told me where babies came from in a heterosexual encounter. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And then she told me in the same conversation where babies come from if you're two women making a baby. Yeah. That was all in the same conversation.
I love that was introduced to you at the same time.
Yeah.
like normalizing it, which it should be. It should be normalized at the same time, not just like the relationship, but that, oh yeah, they can have babies too.
And this isn't
looks
like
a little different, but
it's more complicated, and but it's like not. It's just like, yeah, this is how, like, your dad and I did it, and like this is how they're gonna do it, and that's kind of also how it was delivered to me. It wasn't like, well, two people who love each other very much. Like, it wasn't really like that. It was just like, okay, here's how this works. This is how this is gonna work for them. And my mom just kind of always did that. And I remember when she told me what a period was also around that time, and it happened totally. I mean, like, she would have talked to me about it eventually, I'm sure. But how I found out what a period was she was changing her bed sheets, and I was in the bedroom, and she had the fitted sheet was off, and there was like a stain on the bed, and like blood dries brown. So I was like, what the fuck is that? Ew, like, did you shit the bed? And my mom was like,
shaming your mom for shitting
I was
the bed.
like, that's disgusting. And my mom was like, that's period blood. And I was like, what?
What's that?
What are you talking about? And then what was really funny about this was, like, she just said that, and then when I said, what is that? I remember she just kind of like, she was changing a pillow or something like that, and she just kind of like went, is this really how we're gonna have this conversation? And I was like, what? And she was like, oh, all right, fine. And then she told me, like, she explained the whole thing, but it was really just like, I'm like just in the middle of something here, but you asked, and we're gonna have it anyway, so I'm just gonna tell you. And it was so the delivery was very weird, but I remember at the end of it just being like, hold on, like,
what?
Once a month, every, at the time, woman, because that's like how I thought, is doing this?
How dare you?
What the
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it sounded horrible, and I wasn't into it, and it was never like, expressed to me that, like, ever in any media that I consumed or in my friends or anything like that you became a woman when you got your period.
Oh man, that was like the only thing I heard.
It was something that I kind of heard later or felt later, but when I was like 9 or 11, I didn't feel like that, so I was just like, no thank you, like, get away. And then my friends started to get their periods, and they were young, like we were all still in elementary school, and it was really awful. For a lot of reasons. And I just remember being like, no thank you, like, don't want that. And so I trotted on my merry way, and every once in a while my mom was like, you need to tell me if you start your period. And I was like, but it hasn't happened. She's like, okay, I just need to make sure, like, you need to tell me, because I will prepare you, like, nice. I'll get you what you need, but you just, like, her thing, I think she thought every once in a while when she would bring it up, like, I was hiding it from her. So literal opposite experience. Every once in a while my mom would just pounce on me like, have you do you need to tell me? And I would be like, no, like, it hasn't happened. And then, like, even we went to, like, a family dinner once, and my mom's older sister, who has two,
I know this story, and I love this story so much.
It was literally
hold on. I just want to pause and tell the listeners and watchers that you were living on the island. And this is Vancouver Island, so it's not like beachy island. It's like Vancouver coast island.
Yep.
Very, like, granola-y family that, I imagine you ate a lot of tofu and...
Oh, you better believe we ate a lot of tofu. But like, both my parents were like...
They were punks.
They were old punks.
That lived on the island. So they weren't like hippies, but they were very... Like, the crowd they hung out with, I'm sure, was so interesting. I would have loved to hang out with those kind of people when I was a kid. You gotta think about,
too, like, it was because we moved from Vancouver to Vancouver Island. And Vancouver in the 90s, especially East Vancouver, was, like, very health conscious, very into, like, alternative medicine
stuff going on.
A lot of I remember the first time I saw a green smoothie, and I was like, fuck that. We grew up vegetarian. I was not a vegetarian ever, but yeah, so it definitely, like, it was a vibe.
It was
for
a
sure.
vibe.
We were a family
Definitely.
with a vibe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went to Victoria, and it was a family dinner, and while everyone's, you know, busying in the kitchen, it was literally like my entire family, like my family and then my extended family in this kitchen. So my mom's sister is 6 years older, and then she has two daughters as well who are 5 and 6 years older than me. So at the time, they both had gone through the whole thing already. And it was like everyone in the kitchen was like, Raven, have you started your period? What do you mean? Because at that point, I was 14. So it was like, if it hasn't happened yet, you know, and I remember my aunt saying to my mom, you know, like, pretty soon you might need to. My mom was like, yeah, I've been thinking about it. Like, everyone was just talking about my body, but I was like, I don't want this. Make no mistake. Stop talking about bringing me to the doctor. Like, keep it away from me. I don't fucking want it.
What does that mean? Bring you to the doctor? What happens if you don't?
I think they just check your hormones and stuff. Yeah, maybe we should look into that, because I do know some people
also, is 14 really that old? Because I remember being like, I'm so old.
I don't think it is, but then I also found out that, like, my older cousins had both started their period around 11, 12. And I don't know, maybe my mom and my mom's sister had started a little bit younger also. And I was 14, but I was also like 14 and like a bit. So I don't know, maybe it was just like, you know, maybe you're like right at the end of being a little bit worried.
Yeah.
Or like it's gonna happen any day, or, you know.
I would have been like late 14.
Yeah.
Late 14s. Like I would have been like closer to my 15th birthday.
Yeah. But anything. Yeah, I didn't want it. Nothing about that appealed to me. Nothing about that seemed like a badge of honor or anything. I was just like, fuck that. So, but then when it finally happened, it happened at school, and like it was fine, but then when I came home, I immediately told my mom, but I didn't like pull her aside. I told her in front of my sister and my dad, like, I started my period today at school. My dad was really like, like, you know, like, my dad will get into it if you need him to, but he doesn't really want to do that. And yeah, my mom, like, you know, gave me a hug. And then the next day my mom took me out for dinner, so we had like a little mother-daughter night.
I love that.
I know, it was really.
Didn't she want to have like a moon circle or something?
She didn't want to, but I was worried she would.
She would.
There was a part of me that wondered if there was going to be, also because this had been such a fucking topic in my family, and then like I have a lot of aunties, like friends who and some of them were talking about a moon party, because I'm the first kid in my mom's friend group, so I was going to be the first of the second generation, and I don't know, it needed to be honored in front of the goddess, and I was like, no.
So much granola.
That the woman who was talking about it, that she's the serious granola. But anyway, so
I don't get me wrong, I love granolas.
I was really happy it was just a dinner, though.
Yeah.
So we did a dinner, and it was like, it was actually really nice. Like, my mom just kind of was like, you know, these are some things that are probably going to start happening, and it was a talk that included also like boys consent,
that's amazing.
feeling like when something's okay and when something's not okay.
Yeah,
like it was very much like, you know, now you're kind of entering this world, and so here's some things you need to know. Yeah, it was great. And then on the way home, we're driving, and my mom hands me a little present that's wrapped. And I just said, this better not be a vibrator. And my mom said, why? And I was like, oh, good God. And I opened it, and it was a little bullet vibrator.
Yes.
And I was like, I was fucking mortified, though. I was, at the time, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't know any moms who did that.
I definitely think your mom is a rare breed.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I personally think it's wonderful that she did it.
I mean,
but, you know, also read the room. I mean, it sounds like you didn't really want one.
Well, I don't think she wanted to wait around until I did. That was because that's what she said to me in the car. She was just like, I just want you to
discover it yourself.
Yeah. Because that was kind of also, you know, part and parcel.
What did she say to you again?
Oh, just like, she said basically like, you know, it's inevitable that you're gonna eventually be sexual.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know what it's supposed to feel like.
That was it. It was what it's supposed to feel like.
What it's supposed to feel like.
Which is something that just even the fact that she addressed that there's a way it's supposed to feel like, and then there's something else that's portrayed, and then there's something else that you may experience.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like, that is huge.
It is. And I've thought about it a lot as I get older, and it's like, whoa, that was really something that she did for me. Also because, like most people, I think, when I finally did have sex, I was like, what the fuck?
What the fuck?
What was that?
Yeah.
And also, like, why is it like that? So, anyway, but then, so that happened, and then, I went about my business, didn't use the vibrator for a really long time because I just, like, didn't want to turn. Look, they're loud, and like at the time
you live at home.
It was still one that had the battery and the cord like attached, so it was like even though it was a little bullet. It was like the size of a lipstick, but those things can make a lot of noise. And we lived in a small house. Yeah, it was a battery pack with a cord and then a bullet on the end. Yeah, it was like this was the mid 2000s. This was a while ago. So, and then every once in a while, like when my dad and my sister weren't home, my mom would be like, have you used your vibrator? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you that. Like, that's a little weird. And then also, like, I know I've told you this story too, but like my mom one time when my dad and sister also, like, she didn't bring these kinds of things up in front of everybody when it was this kind of stuff. So I do thank her for that.
That's good.
I had a lot of purses, and she just told me one day, I put, just so you know, I put one condom in each of your purses. Just so you know, they're there.
Brilliant.
I was like,
so smart.
What? Like, why? But so
I love it.
Yeah, it was. It was when I was little. I would ask a question and she would answer me, and then when I was older, it was just like, hey, listen to me. Let
me tell you.
I don't care that you don't want to hear it, and
which is great because then you get into your teen years where you're just so awkward and you are mortified if somebody talks to you about it.
Oh yeah, and I was. Yeah. But also it just made it kind of normal to like bring it up like with my friends and stuff too, where it was just not. I didn't feel like I definitely felt like my period was like.
I just yawned.
It's okay. It was a secret. Mm-hmm. I felt that way for sure, but I didn't really feel ashamed about it.
Yeah.
It was just like, I don't know, I just kind of knew like it was fine, and also that I wasn't alone in it. Yeah. So many people were menstruating.
Yeah.
So
valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really remember how my friends were. I remember we would talk about it, but I don't remember if they had their periods or not. But I remember
probably if you were 14.
Yeah, I probably did. I vaguely remember that. So, but I remember not having any issue talking to my friends about it.
No.
In the sense of, do you have it or not? Not the details of what products are you using. I definitely did not tell them that. I was like so embarrassed to be so poor that I was just like, nobody can know.
Right.
And then it just kind of, continued until I got a job and paid for it myself.
Yeah.
And continued stealing it and whatever. But.
And then you made period underwear.
And then I made period underwear.
And then you just learned a lot of things about periods.
Oh my God. But the thing is like, I was the person that kind of, because I felt a lot of shame, so I didn't ask anybody about anything, and then I didn't tell anybody, was like, I was the person that read the back of the tampon box, or I read like the big ass pamphlet,
right.
So I was like, that was my only source of information. This was all before Google,
Right.
It was all just like, if you had a textbook, I would read the chapter, be like, okay, what's going on, but and then read the back of the tampon box or whatever, like to try and just get any information.
I've never read a tampon box.
I know, which I'm like, that's because somebody told you about your period. I swear the reason I read the tampon box, if I bought a new brand, I would make sure I would see if there's new information on the back of the tampon box.
I just was like, this is how it is, and that's that. I mean, don't know that there's any information on there that I didn't, because also
True.
too, like,
I don't even know what information other than
they tell you how to
die.
insert. Well, yeah, and they also tell you that you can die from them. We'll talk about that another time.
We'll talk about that. We'll for sure talk about that later. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. I like that we both have two very different experiences with our periods, and because the thing is, I do think that literally every single person has something different, something that they went through. You know, whether they got the education or not. I'm sure it's more people didn't get the education. I'm sure there's lots of people like me, you know.
Well, actually, yeah, that's another thing too, is like you said, you got like a day or whatever in public school. I remember one instance of like a health education.
Yeah.
We did it once twice. So once in grade 6, and it was only because we were about to go on like an overnight camp. And so they separated the boys and the girls, and they showed the girls how tampons worked. And it was just like, oh, what would happen if, one of them got their period while we were there or whatever. And I just remember being like mortified, like, what the hell? Watching it like expand under a faucet. I was like, where do you put that? What the fuck? And then I don't
even think they did that with us.
And then I was, I was homeschooled in middle school.
Oh, right.
So right. I don't remember what was going on there, but when I came back in high school, it was one day out of PE.
Yeah.
They just took you into a room and told you about it, and it was just like, I don't remember learning anything. And also at that point, it was like we were all 14, 15, and we were all in the same class, and the boys were so disgusting with their questions. It was certainly not a place where you would want to open up and ask anything that you actually did like want to know a good answer to.
No.
And then because it was only part of PE, we did that again in grade 10, and then PE is optional. It's not anymore. Thank God it was when I was in high school. It was optional from grade 11 to grade 12, and of course I didn't take it. So then there wasn't anything.
Right.
So
yeah, I remember having like I remember it was like, I think they did the same thing, separated the girls from the boys. Someone came in, and I remember they said, which I actually thought was pretty smart, like now looking back, they told us to write our question on a piece of paper and then hand it in. But they told us to write the question before we learned anything. So it was just like, what is sex? What is your period?
What is sex?
You know, like all these just like really, really. And then the thing is, she then had the talk and then read our questions, which I was like, you know, I would have had more questions maybe after I had the talk, you know.
I will also say, when I was in grade 9, we did that same thing with the questions, but the questions were like, you know, can you really fuck a pie? Like they weren't.
Yeah, exactly.
they weren't thoughtful questions. They were gross. And what was really funny was because it was a outside, health educator.
Yeah.
She really did her best to answer the questions in an educational form. Like, I'm just gonna roll with it, and I commend her for that, because they were all
awful,
just from a group of jackasses.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh.
But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, so if I didn't learn it where I did learn it,
yeah,
I wouldn't have learned it.
You wouldn't have learned it. And that's why I didn't learn it.
Yeah. Basically.
But I was really good at reading up on it. I think I always I definitely always used research as a form of like trying to just gain the knowledge myself. And I remember I was always so excited if there was like 1 hour of this. I was like, yes, I get to learn more.
You always wanted to. That's interesting too.
I always wanted to learn. I think if I'd had a mom that was like super down, I would have been like, oh my God, give me all the information.
That's hilarious. But
I love information.
What would have happened if we were friends over here?
I know.
This is a little.
I would have been over at your house every single day. Been like, Denise, tell me more.
This is a quick sidebar here because I was a little bit older, but when I used to live with one of my closest friends, and I think I was like 20 and she was probably 22 at the time. My mom came over, and my friend had, basically like a friends with benefits,
right?
Occasional, just like hookup thing, and she was going to see him that night, and I mentioned to my mom, who was visiting, she's going to get laid, basically. And then I said, don't tell her I told you that. Just keep it on the DL. And then my mom walked into the kitchen and then just goes, so I hear you're going to have sex tonight. I love your mom. And my friend was just like, but it's my mom too. So she was like, yeah. My mom was like, well, have a great time.
I hope to be just like 10% of what she was as a mother. Like, I love her. I've never met her. I love her so much.
She's pretty cool.
I feel like I would hardcore fangirl when I actually do it, because I plan on meeting her at some point.
I'm sure you will. Yeah. I mean, my mom is cooler than I'll ever be, for sure. So
that was one of the first things I remember you saying to me, was like, I can't remember how you worded it. You were like, yeah, I remember realizing, like,
whatever I do,
I'll
never be as cool as my mom.
Yeah,
so many things.
That's hilarious.
So many times I've realized that. I've been like, oh, okay.
But
I'm at peace with it now.
Yeah, you're good. You're fine. It's all good.
Well, I think we should wrap up with our little wrap-up question, which is, and I'm curious to hear your answer to this one, is...
I actually haven't thought about it yet, but...
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. If you could, like, go back or write a letter or something to your 14-year-old self.
Nice note.
And it can kind of be, like, anything, obviously. Like, there's a lot going on when you're 14. Yeah. Like, what would you want her to know?
I think... okay, if I were to write a little note to 14-year-old me, it would 100% be to just tell me that I'm not that weird. Like, I thought I was so... and there was so much, like, there was just so much shame in, like, every aspect of my life at that time that it was, like, I felt like I needed to conform so much, but then at the same time, I didn't. Like, I was just kind of, like, a naturally a different kind of person, but that, like, just telling myself that, like, who you are is just enough. Like, you don't. And then also to just say, like, just tell somebody. Like, because it was so isolating. And, like, just say, like, you know what? You can go tell your older sister. She's going to be totally cool about it. I think that would have freed me of a lot of shame had I just told somebody, anybody. I didn't really have a lot of other people that I could tell, but I for sure, my sister is very cool. I really respect her, and she would have been totally fine had I told her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was, like, it's not my fault, but, like, that was on me. I didn't tell anyone.
But like I said, it's wrapped up in the same thing. So if you told that 2-part to 14-year-old,
2-part,
it would be...
to 14. Don't worry that you're weird.
And then tell someone.
Yeah. Just talk to people. Like, just don't keep it all inside.
It's funny because that's, like, advice I remember receiving when I was, like, 14.
Really?
Yeah, it was just like, it's gonna be fine. And you're like, will it though? Yeah. How do you know? And now it's like, yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. And I love who I am today. Like,
yeah.
I wasn't even that weird. I was just slightly weirder than other people.
Yeah, I definitely feel like individuality was, like, not quite the currency that it is now. When we were
it's so
14.
Cool to be different.
Yeah.
Not when we were 14. Hell no.
Not in the places that we grew up either. Yeah. No. I know, Vancouver Island, like, so, crunchy and cute and whatever, but, like, I grew up in, like, my high school was, like, in farm country. There's also, like, a lot of, like, rednecks, and it's very white, very bland. So it definitely was, like, and in high school it's just, like, you don't really, unless you got, like, a good posse going, you don't really want to, like, draw too much attention to yourself. Having said that, I definitely did have, like, a pretty weird look, but that was it.
That was it. Definitely. Okay, what would you tell your 14-year-old self?
Oh, man. When I was 14, I think that I had already kind of like gone through like a weird sort of personal metamorphosis of like just cooling it on what other people sort of thought of me.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would go back and reinforce that a little bit. And I would just say, you know, you're actually a lot cooler than you think you are.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to like prove anything to anybody.
Right.
That's kind of the main thing, is like you don't have to try so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I think would be too is just, you know, at that point I feel like I'd already like kind of, I was like tuning my own intuition about things. Like how do I, and that was another thing growing up too, is just like, how do you feel about things? Ask questions. Like that was always on the table for us growing up. So I feel like I would, you know, when you're 14 and you're sort of cresting into real teenagehood, I would just be like, trust your gut. Like you know already what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
Go with that, and you don't need to compromise yourself to make other people comfortable. And like remember that.
Oh my god. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Could have used that.
Yeah. I definitely could have been reminded of that. I could have definitely
been slapped in the face with that a few times.
Like a cold fish.
Yes, like a cold Icelandic fish.
But yeah, I think that would be good to know back then. But yeah.
Well, I think that was our first episode.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So,
and there's so many more to come. This is just to get to know us
a little bit of background.
Why we're so passionate about
and why
this podcast and what we're doing,
where we're coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and we do not pretend to know everything. Far from it. But like we know a little bit. We know a slice. And we hope to share that.
There's a television production company. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the one who does like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and stuff, and at the very end it's just like, not a doctor. That's the name of the production company.
Yep. I feel pretty much
you should say that too. But
because we definitely are not doctors,
but we do have bodies, and we do have
bodies, and you know what, sometimes doctors don't even know as much as we do, so
it's very true. It happens
a lot. Yeah.
Well,
all right,
thank you for joining us.
This was a great first episode, and I'm very excited for this.
Me too.
Podcast.
Join us on the journey.
Yes. I feel like I'm always going to leave it to you to end with like a join us.
All right, then let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Why So Mysterious is hosted by Sara Jonsdottir and Raven McLean. Audio is produced and edited by Sonia Inke. Original music is by Malcolm Holt and Alexis Young.
Check out our website, whysomysterious.com, for more information about this episode and other episodes. You can also email us with questions or topics you'd like to hear us cover on the show at whysomysteriousPod@gmail.com.
Follow us on Instagram at whysomysteriouspod for updates, fun facts, and general outrage. If you're an audio listener, but you'd rather be a voyeur, check us out on YouTube.
If you like the show, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Until next time!